Not much is publicly known about his early life. However, Derek Saville was born circa 1929 in Abergavenny, a Monmouthshire marketing town located approximately 6 miles from the southern border between Wales and England. Abergavenny, which is nestled by the Black Mountains within the southeast area of Brecon Beacons National Park, is known for its rich history, with the town being home to Roman remains, medieval mansions, standing stones and castles, and it is also known as the gateway to Wales. It was December of 1954, and 25-year-old Derek Saville, known affectionately by his loved ones as Curly, was residing in Bush Bank, a hamlet in Herefordshire, England, approximately 35 miles north of his birthplace. He was employed as a bus driver and was in a relationship with an 18-year-old woman named Ivy Wood, a secretary who lived in the nearby village of Cannon Paon, which sat approximately 1 mile from Bush Bank. It was 11:30 p.m. on Tuesday, the 7th of December 1954, and Derek kissed Ivy farewell at the front door of her home, Corner House, in Cannon Paon. The couple had spent the evening on a walk and also had a few drinks at the Nag's Head, the local public house. Derek had visited his mother earlier that evening in Newent in the Forest of Dean, Gloucestershire. He had planned to walk back to his residence in Bush Bank, which would ordinarily take approximately 20 minutes. However, Derek, who left Ivy's home carrying a laundry bag, failed to make it home that night. Derek's landlady, Ethel Thomas, was puzzled to find the next morning that his bed had not been slept in, and following this, she raised the alarm. Herefordshire police collected hundreds of statements and searched the village and surrounding fields and woodland with the help of local volunteers, but nothing of significance was found. 60 policemen, soldiers and airmen aided in the search, scouring the woods and scrubland. 2 rivers were also dragged, but nothing was found. The police appealed to Derek himself, urging him to contact his loved ones and promised that his vanishing would not get him into any trouble with the authorities. They strongly believed that Derek was alive and well. The winter chill cloaked the country in frost and snow. With Christmas marching closer, the towns of Cannon Paon, Bush Bank, and back home in Abergavenny was bustling with shoppers who were on the hunt for not only Christmas gifts, but cosy, warm nooks to relax in with cups of apple cider, where words of Derek's disappearance travelled between uneasy locals, with many people concerned that someone among them knew what had happened to him. It was reported in the Birmingham Gazette that on the 14th of December, a 12-hour search was conducted for Derek, with Herefordshire police utilising special constables and tracking dogs. 2 German Shepherds, Robbie and Bronx, were utilised in the search for Derek. They began scouring Ivy's home through Cannon Paon towards Devil's Cave. Despite their best efforts, nothing was found. Ivy Wood told police that her boyfriend had been threatened by an unidentified man, and it was possible that Derek may have been attacked. Ivy stated in the Birmingham Gazette's December 15th issue, quote, "Derek was attacked in October of this year. He was going home after seeing me when he heard something rustling in the hedge. When he turned, he saw a man with his arm upraised. Derek dropped his cycle to defend himself, but the man jumped over the hedge and ran away." Ivy continued, quote, "I am terribly worried about his disappearance. When he left me last Tuesday, he was quite as usual. There had been no trouble between us. He is a nice, quiet boy." Speaking of the last time she saw her boyfriend, Ivy said, quote, "We have been going about together for 3 months. Derek called for me about 8:30 last Tuesday night. We had a drink at the village pub where he was very popular as a member of the darts team and walked back to my home. Derek was in his normal good spirits. After chatting in the house with Mother and me, he left at 11:30. At the garden gate, he kissed me. His last words to me were, "Good night, dear. See you tomorrow night." When he did not arrive the next evening, I thought he might have been called on for a different shift. I am in a complete fog. If Derek lost his memory and was wandering, surely someone would have reported something about him by now. It doesn't look as though he has gone willingly. Speculation was rife, and some thought the threatening man was an ex-boyfriend of Ivy. However, speculation was all it remained, as this former partner denied any involvement in Derek's vanishing. He stated, quote, "I know the gossips are saying that I was jealous of Saville, but it is all nonsense. As far as I am concerned, I broke off with her. There is no question at all of jealousy. I now have another girlfriend." He said of the unidentified man who had threatened Derek, quote, "The police saw me about it, but it was not me. I have a clear conscience on this whole matter. I saw Saville in Cannon Pion on the night he vanished, but that was quite early in the evening. I was back home by 9 o'clock and stayed in listening to the radio. I never went out again that evening." On December 22nd, reports emerged that police were searching for 2 stolen guns, potentially linked to Derek's disappearance. These firearms were reported missing from an outbuilding at Hollycroft in Tillington, where Ivy's ex-boyfriend had resided. However, it was noted that the guns had only vanished a week after Derek went missing. The police believed the guns had been borrowed earlier and subsequently stolen. Rumours circulated in Cannon Pion suggesting that Derek's friendship with a female had ruffled feathers, and jealousy was suggested as a motive for his disappearance. The landlord of the Nag's Head pub, Richard Hardy, stated that he had heard mumblings about, quote, a person who had been loitering in the village. He further elaborated, quote, "I understand this man is hanging about late at night and hiding behind trees. I am told that on one occasion he jumped out on Saville." Derek Saville was, quote, a ladies' man and was seen as a charming and attractive young man who was popular with women in the area. Some people thought that because of this, another man may have become jealous and caused Derek some sort of harm. When Derek vanished, his girlfriend Ivy Wood, as well as 4 other women, spoke of their experiences with Derek with the police. Reports suggested that Derek had proposed marriage to Ivy and 19-year-old Hazel Stokes. Both women had apparently told him to wait for their responses. 5 women in total came forward, identifying themselves as girlfriends of Derek. Hazel said of Derek, quote, "He was so charming. I was terribly fond of him. I still am, I suppose." Ivy said, quote, "He began going with me after Hazel. I know there were a lot of other girls. Women couldn't help making a fuss of him." David Harvey, who dedicated himself to investigating Derek's disappearance, spoke with Derek's mother and learned that the widow and her son had a close relationship, and if Derek had chosen to disappear, he would have at least written a letter to her explaining his plans. It became apparent that Derek had been fearful of a man who had threatened him, further commenting that Derek had allegedly saved £18 in a thrift club at the Plough Inn, and the sum was due to be paid out around 2 weeks after he vanished. Derek also failed to collect his weekly salary. David Harvey also uncovered that Derek's bicycle had a puncture in one of the wheels and was stored in a garage in the bus facility where Derek worked. David Harvey strongly believed that because no money had been collected and his belongings, including his driver's license, were left untouched, Derek Saville had not disappeared of his own volition, but had been murdered. As the investigation continued, over 1,000 statements were collected. Lorry drivers who passed through the village were also questioned in the hope that perhaps someone had picked Derek up. However, this line of inquiry was fruitless. One witness statement in particular caught the attention of investigators. On Christmas Eve, 16-year-old Pat Knight, who resided in the nearby village of Wellington, stated that as she cycled home at dusk on the 7th of December, quote, a shape jumped out behind her in a threatening manner. This resulted in Pat cycling as fast as she could back home, where loved ones noticed she was in distress due to the incident. Derek's sister spoke of her heartache as Christmas arrived, with both she and her husband being forced to move out of their home. Quote, we had been looking forward to spending our first Christmas together in our rooms in Railway Place. Coming on top of the worry about my poor brother, this is a dreadful shock. We do not know which way to turn. We may go into a caravan. We were told by the landlady that she could not have her name or house associated in any way with Derek's disappearance. The landlady commented that she was struggling to deal with the publicity and attention she received during that time. As the new year rang in and no answers had been found, locals of Canon Paon took matters into their own hands, and 25 days on from Derek's disappearance, they conducted their own searches, believing too that Derek had been murdered. Newly married Mrs. Brenda Pilliner of Norton Cannon, another nearby village, made a statement to police which turned the tide in the investigation. She told the police that on the night of the 7th of December, she witnessed two men in a van. These men allegedly said, quote, we are looking for Saville to give him a beating up. Not long after this encounter, the men reappeared and, according to Brenda, one of the men had a blood-stained shirt. Brenda stated, quote, they told me my life wouldn't be worth living if I said anything. Her husband, Mr. Pilliner, had urged her to speak with police after it had become obvious to him that his wife was being troubled by something. According to reports, Mr. Pilliner said he was certain that an individual had been stalking the area around their cottage, and as a result, he began routinely sleeping with a loaded gun by the bedside. The police discovered two suit buttons with fragments of dark fabric attached in a hedge, approximately 200 yards from Derek's last known location. These items were sent for examination, but no further information about the results have been disclosed. Unfortunately, the case went cold, with Derek's loved ones without answers as to what happened to the 25-year-old that fateful night. In June 2007, it was announced that the case was to be reopened after lying dormant for decades. Officers from the West Mercia Constabulary reopened the investigation after a new witness, who now lives in Australia, revealed that when he was 7 years old, he saw his now deceased father, along with a group of 4 or 5 unidentified men, digging what seemed to be a makeshift grave around the time of Derek's disappearance. The witness had been on holiday in the United Kingdom and made the decision to speak with the police about the horrific event he saw. An excavation of the area in a field was carried out on a 20-metre square area, measuring 6 feet deep. In early July, the search was called off after no human remains were found. A West Mercia police spokesperson stated, quote, there are other lines of inquiry that we will be following up, so the investigation is still ongoing. We still believe the evidence from the witness was credible and genuine, that they believe what they saw. Investigating officers suspect that Derek Saville may have been attacked and killed, possibly unintentionally, by someone driven by jealousy. The police have reportedly identified several suspects, as reported in 2007, who at the time were between the ages of 70 and 90. Another suspect, known to have been threatened and intimidated Derek, passed away in January 2007 after a long illness. There have been no further updates on the case since, and 70 years after Derek's disappearance, his fate remains a mystery.